time is 7:02 p.m. And welcome to tonight's meeting of the Wooddale Community Development Commission. My name is Jamie Ochoa and I am the chair. Ms. Secretary, can you please do roll call?
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Ms. Zadko.
Here.
Mr. Woods.
Here.
Mr. Babowitz.
Here.
Our new member, Ms. Rudnicki.
Here.
And Chairman Ochoa.
Here. The CDC has a quorum present. With that, we'll proceed. We need a motion to carry the minutes from our last meeting, 27 June 2022. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
There being a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All those opposed signify by saying no. The motion carries, the minutes are approved. With that, moving on to tonight's public meeting hearings. Mr. Conway, can you please do us the honors and request that you kindly facilitate this public hearing?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Okay, I'd like just to start with a couple of prefatory remarks about our hearings for tonight. For our public hearings, all testimony will be given under oath. At the hearing, there'll be an opportunity for the public to offer testimony and to comment. Following the public hearing, the CDC's deliberations will be open to the public in the sense that all are invited to listen and watch. The public, however, may not speak during the deliberation portion of tonight's meeting. Staff will provide a general description of the proposal followed by their analysis. We will also ask the applicant here tonight to give specific evidence and to demonstrate that the proposal meets the standards of approval for the request. The burden is on the applicant to prove the case. With respect to others who wish to speak, you may give an opinion or present specific evidence as to why you believe the applicant meets or fails to meet the standards for the request. Finally, we will strictly adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's hearings. However, those wishing to submit evidence and testimony will be afforded sufficient time within which to do so. Whether you are a member of the public wishing to make a statement for the record or a witness testifying on behalf of the applicant, you will be placed under oath, and then you'll begin by stating your name and address. You'll be subject to questions by the Community Development Commission and potential cross-examination by the applicant. To allow as many people as possible the opportunity to be heard, we would request that you limit your remarks to 5 minutes. If any additional time is needed, the hearing may be continued until the next available hearing date. For those of you who are wishing to provide any testimony, we also ask that you kindly approach the podium and speak directly into the microphone because tonight's proceedings are being recorded. Okay, I'll call tonight's first matter. This is CDC, case number CDC 2022-05. This case involves the city's proposed amendments to Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code, the Unified Development Ordinance, including amendments to Section 17.103, Rules and Definitions, and Table 4-5, Permitted Use Table related to community residents, Section 17.3010, related to fence regulations for front yard fences, Section 17.1004.d, clarifying the primary exterior materials, and revisions of a few Scrivener's errors throughout the text. Okay, staff, could you please indicate when the notice of the hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper?
Would you raise your right hand, please? State your name and address.
Gosha Pocheha, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a certificate of publication on file. The public hearing notice was published in Daily Herald on September 30th.
Okay. And staff, do you have any remarks or presentation regarding this matter?
Yes, we do have a brief presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Just to provide a little bit of a background, I know a couple months ago that we met, I want to say over a couple of different months, to talk about the UDO. As you're aware, back in May, the City Council approved a brand-new rewrite of the entire Chapter 17. It's quite extensive. It's over 240 pages. I think it was mentioned in one of the public hearings. So what often happens is that after the actual text is adopted, as we go through it, we find a number of things that there's either Scrivener's errors, typos in the text, or things that we discover that require further clarifications. As it often happens with the scope of the project, because it was so much text to go through, a couple things were missed. So what we are proposing today is essentially 4 different types of text amendments that we will outline one by one. But I did want to mention that probably over the winter, we may bring back a couple more that we found after the adoption of the text that may require further clarification. So just to kind of summarize, as it was mentioned by the city attorney, what we will be talking about today would be community residence, specifically the definition, and also whether it's a permitted or special use under the table of permitted uses. We're also going to clarify fence regulations because this was a typo that was discovered in the text. We will talk about primary materials, and this is mainly the sort of the definition or the requirement. And the few Scrivener's errors, I believe they're outlined in the memo, and we'll briefly touched upon them as well. So to begin with, community residence, this is a use that is specifically defined in section 17103. A couple changes are being proposed. As you see, especially the removal of the state license, because what we discovered is that the actual text in the regulations is a little bit in conflict of that, so this is really just meant for clarification. We're not really changing anything, it's just to clarify the text. And also, because now we will have this community residence that could be licensed or unlicensed, we're also introducing in the table of permitted uses, there will be a specific category for community residences that are licensed, which would be a permitted use. That's how it is right now, but we're adding an additional one for unlicensed community residences, which will be considered a special use, so they would have to go through a special use process. Another text amendment is related to fences in the front yard. You may recall from our conversations about the UDO. The UDO steering committee proposed to reduce the fence height for any fences in the front yards from 4, which was existing prior to the change of the new UDO, to 3 feet. And that change was noted in the table. There is a summary table in the fence regulations, and that stayed at 3 feet. But then what was missed is that there is one paragraph which is listed in here under 2D that still reflected the 4 feet. So we're just clarifying it, making it 3 feet, because that was the intent with the rewrite of the UDO. And also this was the suggestion from the UDO steering committee. Another text amendment that's being proposed is related to durable primary materials. There is a new section in our code that talks about design standards, and this specifically is for commercial buildings. You may recall on some other projects that we've worked on before, we had a section in Chapter 12, which is our building code, that had very specific requirements for exterior materials for different types of buildings, for commercial, multifamily, industrial, and so on. In a lot of cases for commercial buildings, the requirement was that at least 85% has to be brick. We've had some conversations, staff and consultants and also contractors, and 85 was a high number to achieve. So the new design standards, this definition was proposed that it says use of durable primary materials. But I think we just really meant to clarify even further is that the primary, and our interpretation would mean at least 50% or more. And we also want to clarify that when we're looking at this 50% calculation, is that all of the openings for windows and doors shall be excluded. That was specifically how it was listed in the original code under Chapter 12. So this is just something we're carrying over just to make sure that we're in keeping with what the original regulation was. And lastly, we have the Scrivener's error. So you can see 7 of them here. Some of them, it's just duplication. Like in the first one, we have private listed twice, so we're just cleaning it up. We're also adding a number 2. It talks about application of those regulations to any district in the TIO and the TCB. If you were actually to go to the TCB regulations, it would say that this is applicable as well. So we're just kind of tying the two together. No change at all. This is really just more a clarification. And number 3, literally just a typo, so we're removing 1 letter. Let's see, number 4, very similar, because we're mentioning what those sections are, there's really no need to say in this article. So that's really the bulk of it. Number 5, this was a typo. This is a summary table that is listing bulk regulations for the C3 zoning district. If you were to go the actual section to for the C3 district, those numbers were listed. In the table, they were incorrect. So this is, once again, this is just clarification. And number 6, we actually have a typo. We have a letter R instead of P for permitted. And then in number 7, we're switching. There's a reference to village, and obviously it would be city of Wooddale. So that's kind of a summary of all the Scrivener's errors that we've discovered so far. In terms of the public comments, we have not received any since the publication of the notice. And to sum up, there really is no requirement to adopt findings of fact based on our UDO, but we, staff, find that those text amendments are consistent with the comprehensive plan and with the UDO. Therefore, we recommend that CDC recommend approval of this petition to City Council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pocheja. Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for staff? Mr. Bedwitz?
I have no personal feeling on 3 feet or 4 feet, but why would they change it from 4 to 3?
I think that was the appearance. So there was a conversation, one of the members, I believe, brought in the fact that really the intent of having any fencing in the front yard was really meant to be just decoration. But once you get to a 4-foot height, it looks a little bit higher. It's kind of creating this barrier where it's not as decorative anymore.
So on a backyard, it would be 4?
In the backyard, it's up to 6 feet.
Okay.
And you can have solid fencing. This is really only front fence, so anything from the front
Gotcha.
face of the building to the street.
No, I think that's a good move. I think it's great that they're changing some of these UDO requirements. I think this is the first of many, in my opinion, as we go along, but I think it's a good move to clarify issues that should come up.
Thank you.
Okay, any other member? Mr. Wood?
Yeah, with the fence code, once again, I thought we were doing this to try to clear up a lot of problems that we have existing. And with staying with the 4 foot, we would have probably cleared up a lot of that. But now dropping down to 3 foot, you're creating even more. You've got 5-foot fences, you've got 6-foot fences, and now you're gonna take it down to 3. Half the people I know in Ward 4 probably don't have a legal fence. So anytime they need to go repair that fence, and if they do more than 45% of it, you're telling them they gotta take it down.
And this was something that was discussed. Yeah, we mentioned it as staff as a comment, but the UDO steering committee, that was the direction that was given. And as we know, the UDO was sort of like this joint project. So that was the direction that the UDO steering committee wanted to go. So it was a reduction from 4 to 3.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, is there any member of the public here tonight who would like to make a statement on this particular case? Okay, great. Final call for questions for CDC members. All right, with no further questions, now what I'll do is, and just to remind everybody, and this is also for the benefit of our new member, we're getting to the point where we're about to close the public hearing. The public hearing portion, remember, is the portion where you would ask any questions that you may have of staff. Once we close the public hearing, then it's just for deliberations amongst the members. There's no more questions for staff at that point, okay? So with that, I'll make a final call for any further questions for staff. Okay, no further questions. I will now entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
I think it was Member Sadsko with the second. Okay, and then we'll do a roll call to close the public hearing, Marilyn?
Mr. Babolis?
Yes?
Ms. Jager Rudnicki, would you prefer that I use both names?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. All right, Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Zadko?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
And Chairman Ochoa?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. So the public hearing portion of this case is now closed. I'll now open the floor for deliberation amongst the members. Is there any member that has any comment or statement to make? Okay. So we'll proceed to now vote on the application that's been submitted. Staff did prepare a recommended motion. It's in the staff memo at page 4. I'll read it aloud. It's quite lengthy. If you are in favor of these recommended amendments, you would vote yes at the conclusion of this motion. If you are not in favor of the recommended amendments, you would vote no. Okay, so I will read the motion into the record. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code are consistent with the comprehensive plan and are in keeping with the purpose and intent of the UDO. And therefore, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated October 17th, 2022, as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 17, including amendments to Section 17.103, Rules and Definitions, and Table 4-5, Permitted Use Table related to community residents, Section 17.3010 related to the fence regulations for front yard fences, Section 17.1004.d, clarifying the primary exterior materials, and revisions of the Scrivener's errors throughout the text as set forth in case number CDC 2022-0005. Somebody can just say, "So moved."
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Marilyn, if we could have a roll call, please?
Mr. Babolis?
Yes?
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Yes. Ms. Zadko?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
No.
And Chairman Ochoa?
Yes.
Okay,
Motion carried.
the motion passes. This particular matter will go to the city's PZB committee for further consideration. Ms. Bocheha, is there a date on that yet, or we don't know
have a
yet?
date.
Okay. So the next, just for the members of the public, the next step will be that this particular application will go to the city's PZB committee, and then from there, it would go to the full city council. So if you're interested, just keep your eyes on the agendas. Okay, let's move on to tonight's second matter. It's CDC 2022-06. This case involves a request for a special use for a multiple unit dwelling building, a planned unit development, combined concept and final development plan, and site plan review to construct a multi-unit rental building on property previously occupied by SBT Bank pursuant to sections 17.205 and 17.206 of the Municipal Code of the City of Wooddale and applicable zoning regulations. The subject property is located at 372 North Wooddale Road and is currently owned by the City of Wooddale. The Lindmark Group is the applicant. Staff, can you please indicate when the notice of hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper?
And once again, your name
Gosha Pocheja, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the public hearing notice for this petition was published in Daily Herald on September 30th. The city does have a copy of the certificate of publication. The sign was also placed at the property, and the notices were mailed to property owners within 250 feet of the subject property.
Okay, great, thank you very much. And do we have the applicant here tonight? All right. We'll start with the applicant. So if you could, just approach the podium and feel free to make your presentation to the CDC.
And would you raise your right hand, please, and state your name and address?
Brad Friedman, 375 Dundee, Wheeling, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Good evening. My name is Brad Friedman. I'm with the Lindmark Group, and I am here tonight to present our proposed development project for 372 North Wooddale Road. As everyone here knows, we are proposing a 5-story luxury apartment building. My presentation is going to be pretty brief, but I have my entire team here tonight to answer any questions and go through everything in detail to make sure that we address any concerns or questions that you have regarding the development. As I said, my name is Brad Friedman. I'm with the Lindmark Group. Brief history about the Lindmark Group. It's been around for over 65 years. It's a multi-generational family real estate development, and we have been developing real estate, as I said, for over 65 years. We've developed and constructed more than $1.3 billion in real estate projects in 19 states, including multifamily projects, hospitality, hotel, retail, and office. And tonight we are focusing on the subject property, which is 372 North Wooddale Road. Everybody here is very familiar with it. It's right next to City Hall, right next to the Park District Water Park, with a lot of exposure on Wooddale Road. I know how important it is to the community to see this site developed. Just a couple of basic facts about the project. We're looking at a site that is about 4.6 acres. We are proposing a 5-story luxury apartment building, which will have about 176 units. The proposed mix will have about 31 studios, 77 one-bedrooms, 68 two-bedrooms. We do plan on having a full-blown amenity package, which I will get to in just a minute. It will feature a courtyard with a pool, and we have about 270 open surface parking spaces on the plan. This is a perspective rendering of the project, which was put together by the architects from KTGY. I think they did a fantastic job of bringing in a mix of colors, a mix of materials, and a mix of depth to break up the building. And as you can see, all of the units will have a protruding balcony, except for those units on the ground floor, they will have open patio space. So this is a view of the overall site plan. You can see that we have a 5-story U-shaped building with an interior courtyard. We have access points, 2 access points off of Wooddale Road, and then we have 1 access point off of Commercial. We have parking surrounding the building. We also have a number of different access points, so no matter where you park on the property, you're never going to have to walk too far to get into the building. Nice convenience for all the residents. And we also have nice wide drive aisles, which will accommodate the fire truck and the turning radius requirements. Taking a closer look here at the project. Do I have to stay here while I talk because I can't go up and point?
No, you can go.
Okay, so I just wanted to let you know here that So this is the main entrance to the building here, right off of Wooddale Road. And so that's where we're gonna have our management and our leasing office. And it's gonna have an open flow into some of the other amenities as well, where we will have a business center and a conference room and a fitness room and a studio space and a club room and a private party room. And that's all gonna flow into the courtyard area where we will have the pool, lots of fire pit, lounge seating, grill stations, dining tables. You can see we have a nice drop-off area up here for the main entrance, for Uber, DoorDash, drop-off, pickup, whatever the case may be. We also have all of our back of the house up to the north of the property, where we will take care of all of the trash and loading, so it's somewhat removed from Wooddale Road. As you can see, these are the access points to the building, here, and then of course the main entrance up there. And we have ADA parking that has been located close to the access points to the building. So talking about the amenities, as I had mentioned, we are going to have on-site management, leasing, and a maintenance team at the building at all times. We will have a lobby with complimentary coffee and lounge seating. We'll have a club room with a party space and a kitchen where people can have events. We'll have a fitness room and a studio space. We'll have a conference room, open workspace throughout the amenity area. We'll have a large package room to accept all the packages from Amazon, a dog washing station, and the courtyard, as I had mentioned, will feature a pool, lounge chairs, grill stations, outdoor dining, and patio seating. I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures later on in the presentation about a project that we did where you could see some of the amenities and get a better feel for what type of construction we are proposing. This will be the typical floor plan on levels 2 through 5, so you could see how the units stack up. And you could see that we have the large 2 bedrooms, the studios, and the 1 bedrooms. And then you can also see that we have the 2 elevators and the stairwells for access. So talking about the unit mix, as I had mentioned, about 17 studios, which we anticipate getting about $1,400 a month in rent. About 93 one-bedroom units, we anticipate at about $1,600 a month in rent. We'll do 2 different 2-bedroom units. We'll do a small 2-bedroom that'll get about $2,100 in rent, and then a larger 2-bedroom, which will be about 1,200 square feet and about $2,400 in rent is what we are anticipating. A couple of milestones to give you an idea of what the project timeline is going to look like. We've been working with city staff on a redevelopment agreement, which is about 99% complete. We are here tonight going through the PUD process. Once we get PUD approval, it should take us about 6 months to complete our construction drawings, and then we will be able to obtain a construction loan from our lender. And then we are looking to close on our construction loan and break ground in late 2023. Once we break ground, it will be about 18 months of construction. And then we are anticipating getting our certificate of occupancy and opening up our doors to residents in early 2025. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a lot of pictures of what we recently completed in Wheeling. We developed 16 acres in Wheeling. It was a mixed-use TOD project, much larger than what we're talking about here, but it was a lot more land that we had to work with. It was about 100,000 square feet of retail that surrounds a pedestrian plaza and then a large apartment building with 300 units. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out some similarities here of what we're proposing to the Wheeling Town Center project. This is another rendering of what we are proposing to build here in Wooddale. And As you can see, sorry, I just wanted to go back real fast. The picture here for the Wheeling Town Center is very similar in terms of a mix of materials, a mix of colors, and depth to break up the building. Very similar to what we are proposing here in Wooddale. A little bit about Linmark and what we did in Wheeling. As I had mentioned, Linmark has been around for 65 years. What I really want to focus on is that the Linmark Group, we are long-term holders. We are not merchant developers. We do not build a project, stabilize it, sell it, flip it, move on to the next project. We are looking for steady cash-on-cash returns. We are in it for the long haul. So that says a lot about the type of quality and construction that we bring to every project. Our buildings are LEED certified, Energy Star certified. We have a solar company, and we are in the process of installing solar rooftop panels on a lot of our assets. The one Wheeling, the apartment building at the Wheeling Town Center, is 95% occupied. It gets great reviews on Google. We host a lot of community and resident events that everyone gets really excited about. We have a fantastic retention rate, and based on the demographics of the people that live in that building, it's very clear that we have a more mature renter by choice. They're choosing to live there because they desire a luxury, maintenance-free living. So I'm going to give you a tour now of what we did in Wheeling. I'm just going to run through some pictures so you get an idea of what we created there. This is the main entrance right off of the plaza. This is the lobby, and as you can see, there's a coffee station in the back and some lounge seating and some tables where people can congregate and meet and do some work. This is the club room here, and off to the left you can kind of see that it's a glass wall. It's a very open space. It's open to all of the neighboring amenities, so everything is very centralized. Here's another view of the club room. You can see the pool table, which gets tons of use from people who live in the building. We've got couches and TVs and high-top tables where people come, gather, congregate, and we host a lot of events. And then you can also see to the left that there are glass windows that lead out into the courtyard. So again, everything is very open and very visible. Here's another view of the club room, and it leads into the private party room in the back. We have sliding barn doors where you can slide and close them if you want to rent out the room for some privacy. And then this is the kitchen in the private party room, and we do a lot of coffee and donuts in the morning or wine and cheese at night for some of our events. We did a make your own sundae bar, which was a huge hit. The line was like out the door for that one. Here's a photo of the game room, and this is the conference room, which gets a lot of use during the day. And then on Friday nights, there's a group of guys that head into the conference room and they play poker and they order pizza and they bring their beers, and it's just wonderful to see that the space is really a multi-purpose space. It gets a lot of use, whether it's during the day or at night. Here's a shot of the fitness room. Another shot of the fitness room. And then here's the yoga studio that I was telling you guys about. The yoga studio actually gets a lot of use, and it's not just for yoga. It's for kickboxing or dance instruction or any sort of cardiovascular activity. People just love utilizing that open space. This is a picture of one of the units. What we usually do is we offer two types of units. For Wheeling, we did a light unit and a dark unit. It really helps us appeal to a majority of renters. Everyone has a specific style that they're looking for, and having the two different units really works. This is the light unit with the white cabinetry, the backsplash, the stainless steel appliances, the wood floors. And then here's a view of the dark unit with the dark cabinets, different style backsplash, different flooring. Everything is worked out with our interior designer and carefully selected. Here's a view of one of the bathrooms with a backlit mirror. That's a big hit with all the residents. They love that. This is a view of the courtyard with the pool, the lounge seating, and the fire pit. Here's another view of the courtyard showing the grill stations in the back and the dining tables, and we have a little area for bocce and cornhole as well. And then this is, again, the main entrance to the apartment building off of the plaza. And as you can see, landscaping is very meticulous. We put a lot of care and attention into the site, the maintenance, the appearance, the lighting. We are big believers in first impression is going to last, and so the moment somebody steps onto the property, we want to make sure that it is a fantastic experience. That is going to wrap up my presentation. I know there are going to be a lot of questions. As I said, I have my entire team here that I will call upon as questions come in. We have the folks from KTGY, those are the architects. We have Spaceco, the civil engineer. We have a representative from Upland Design, the landscape architect. I have my traffic and parking engineer as well, and I even brought my general contractor if there are any questions regarding construction. With that being said, Gosha, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Apologize, we're having technical.
That's okay.
It's too many clicks.
I know. Apologize.
You have a slide, Gosha?
What is it?
Did you have a slide?
I do, but unfortunately I need a keyboard to turn it off, so I'll do that very quickly.
I was going to say, let's take 5, but I feel like I'm in The Wizard of Oz because there's a guy behind the curtain right there pulling all the strings.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. We're back on.
Now, the big question is, can we get back to my presentation if necessary?
Yes, we can do
Okay.
that. Beautiful, all righty. So I'll just have a brief overview. This was a really in-depth presentation. I just wanted to focus on a couple of things in terms of zoning approvals and so on. So we are already familiar with the location. We're really close to the city hall. We're just to the south of us. This is a property that was owned by the city for quite some time. We are about 10-minute walk from the Metro train station, so this is something that definitely is appealing to the project, and this is definitely something that the city was looking to redevelop for quite some time. Some of you may recall that in 2020, there was a different developer that was interested in building apartment building at this subject property. It was a little bit of a different proposal because there were 4 separate buildings, 3 to 4 story high. The project did go through the entitlement process. CDC recommended approval. It was recommended for approval by City Council, but there were certain conditions that were put on there, and unfortunately the development did not go through. So that's why the city started working with the Linmark Group to bring this proposal forward. So I will move on. This is just a snapshot of our zoning map. The subject property is zoned TCB, which is Town Center Business District. Once again, we're kind of close to our center of the city, so definitely this is a use that is desirable. The multifamily or multi-unit housing is something that is requires a special use, which is very typical for any zoning district. So that is one of the requests today. A special use for multi-unit. We have a special use for planned unit development, the final development, which is a combined concept and final. There's also site plan review. There is lot consolidation, but some of these things will be considered once they go to the city council, so they don't fall under CDC per se. Moving on, this is just a snapshot from our comprehensive plan. So the future land use map does have this area noted as retail commercial. This is a multifamily or rental apartment development, but it does meet sort of this commercial aspect. Obviously, this will be something that generates income for the property owners and so on. So that's probably the best way to explain why it qualifies under commercial, and also it's the density that's there. The existing conditions, as we mentioned, it's about 4.6 acres in size. It does consist of 2 parcels. Both of them are owned by the city. As part of this process, the city council will consider lot consolidation just to make sure that everything is covered under one lot. Currently, there is a bank building on site and surface parking, so those will be removed to enable the development. And obviously, there's that heavy woodland area that's located behind the building. The site plan was covered really in depth in the prior presentation, so I'll just kind of highlight a couple things. We have a 5-story building. Really, the building itself really could go just through a special use process for the multi-unit, but because it is over 55 feet in height, it requires the planned unit development. So the regulation for TCB state that if a building goes over a certain height, it requires a PUD process. That's why we're kind of going through more depth for this particular development. There is a total of 176 units, 270 parking spaces, which actually meet the code requirement. And actually exceed the code requirement. And there are sufficient accessible parking spaces being provided. In terms of stormwater management, it will be provided by underground storage units that are under the parking lot. What I did want to point out is the interior trash collection that was noted on the north side. This particular area, so there's not going to be per se an outdoor trash enclosure. Everything kind of will be handled inside of the building. And obviously there's a number of outdoor amenities, so indoor and outdoor amenities for the residents. The landscape plan I did want to point out because it is quite extensive. There are a significant number of trees that are on site right now. They obviously will be removed to facilitate this construction, and the tree preservation and requirements apply. It is more specifically outlined in the memo in terms of how many trees and so on, but there's a couple deviations that are being sought in this project. The proposal really strived to fit as many trees as possible on site, but they're not able to accommodate all of the required replacement trees that are listed per the UDO. I did want to mention is that when we approved the update to our UDO a couple months ago, really one of the requirements that changed is that the number of required replacement trees was doubled. That was something that also came through the UDO steering committee. So that's why it's very difficult for this site to be able to meet the required number of trees. But having said that, it's really as many trees as they could, they really tried to fit on the site. The rendering we've seen before, this is the 5-story building, that's the front of it. And what I really want to focus on is the requested PUD deviation. So what often happens with this scale of development is that the project is not able to meet all of the code requirements. Because we have a PUD, these will be called deviations as opposed to just a standalone variations. And really, PUD is a tool that can be used to kind of achieve this higher level of development, but at the same time, it gives some more flexibility to the developer to be able to achieve this development that they're trying to do. So what we really have is just a handful of variations. I will note that the prior development had probably double or more than double of this number. So it's quite significant reduction in the number of deviations that are being requested. And I'll just run through these. We can definitely go more in depth into anyone that you have questions about. The lot coverage. This is something that we really try to work on, and so for this particular zoning district, the maximum permitted lot coverage is 80%. What is being proposed is at 82%, so we're very close, but we're a little bit over, so it's listed as a deviation. Part of it is the developer was trying to provide all of the required parking spaces that were needed for the residents and guests and so on. So that's kind of this balance, trying to provide the required parking and amenities, but that took them a little bit over on the lot coverage. I do want to clarify that the lot coverage requirement is a zoning requirement that is different from the stormwater requirement, which is an engineering requirement. And based on the review that our city engineer done, we don't have final engineering yet, but obviously that will be done as part of the permitting, prior to the permitting. But our engineers are fairly confident that we're really close to, and they didn't really see any concerns related to the stormwater management for this site. The other item would be the driveway offsets. We actually see that quite often. A lot of the PUDs that come in front of the CDC request this. So when we have, and let me see if I can go back a little bit. The driveways that are, maybe this actually shows a little bit better. The driveways that will service the site, so there's one on the north here on the south, there is a particular offset that's required with the driveways that are on the opposite side. The code requires that they either have to align or they have to be at least 150 feet away. Because there's quite a number of those driveways on the opposing side, the development is not really able to meet the offset. They're about 80 feet. So this is listed as one of the deviations that they're not able to meet. But as I said, this is something that we quite commonly see with this type of development. The materials, this is kind of referencing what we talked about under the proposed text amendments. The entire elevation is made up of different materials. We have some brick, we have some stone, we have some fiber cement. There is specific table in the staff memo that lists those particular percentages, but ultimately the development is not able to meet the 50% durable material requirement. So that is being listed as a deviation request. Parking island widths, our code requires that the parking islands be at least 7 feet in width. There are a couple parking islands that are a little bit less than that. They vary between 4.5 to 6 feet. So they just don't meet the 7-foot mark. But per the landscape architects for this project, they said they could still put the tree in it. That is a code requirement. So it's just the size of the island will be a little bit smaller. That happens in 5 instances on the site plan. The replacement trees I briefly touched upon. So there's a significant number, I believe is 260 replacement trees would be required for this project. There is a significant number that are being planted. There's over 90 trees that are being planted. 50, some of them actually count as replacement trees. But there's a couple deviations that the applicant is seeking. One of them is that our code states that if a tree is dead or a nuisance tree or diseased tree, typically it would require 1-to-1 replacement. They're actually seeking to not have to replace those trees once again because it's a significant number of trees that they're not going to be able to accommodate. The other deviation is the fact that there's, even after they planted all of the trees that they can, there's still 137 trees that are not being able to be accommodated on site. So staff is proposing sort of a condition or a suggestion is that instead of having to pay a fee in lieu or having to plant those trees obviously on site, the developer has agreed to plant or dedicate to the city 20 trees that will be planted on publicly owned property. So at the discretion of the city, they will donate 20 trees that we could work with our Public Works Department to figure out what would be the best placement for those. And I will note that this is very similar to the prior development as well. The prior developer, the tree requirement essentially was heavily waived, or there was a deviation. They were not required to do a fee in lieu or to even plant any trees on public property. So this is kind of, we're getting at least the 20 trees as a benefit. And lastly, we have the parking lot interior landscaping. This is a new requirement under the UDO, and it states if you have a larger parking lot, you need to devote a larger percentage of that interior parking to landscaping. In this case, based on the size of the parking, we would need at least 8%. But because once again, this site is really laid out to the maximum possible to accommodate the building and the required parking and so on, that existing percentage is proposed about 4% as opposed to 8%. So this is listed as one of the deviations as well. And in terms of the public comment, we really haven't received any phone calls or emails regarding this particular petition. And really just to sum up, staff does find the proposal is consistent with the UDO and with the comprehensive plan. The standards and the responses to the standards are outlined in staff memo. So we do recommend, that CDC recommend approval to City Council based on certain conditions. And the first one, as always, is that we want to make sure that the proposal stays in conformance with the items that were submitted in this packet in the CDC memo. Also, final engineering approval, which is a big one. As I noted, city engineers have looked at this project. They haven't identified any final or any outstanding items, but obviously we still need to go through the final engineering approval. We do have a couple additional items. Based on the documents that were submitted, it doesn't look there really are going to be any rooftop units that will be visible from the street, but we wanted to add this as a condition that just in case, if there is anything, proper screening will be provided. So this is for rooftop units. We also have one about the trees that I mentioned. So this will be the 20 trees that will be planted at the city's discretion off-site. And lastly, we do want to mention that there should be this obligation for the developer to make sure that the landscaping that is on site is being maintained as the project goes on. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so I think what we'll do right now is we'll open it up to the CDC members to ask questions of Mr. Friedman and his team, and/or Ms. Pocheha and staff. Do we have any questions from CDC members? Mr. Woods?
Gosh, I'm sorry, didn't this come in front of us like last year? And they were supposed to break ground on this summer?
No, so this was 2020, it was a different developer.
So we've never seen these people before?
No, there was a presentation before City Council, because this project also has a redevelopment agreement, an RDA, so there was a concept presented to City Council, but not CDC.
Okay.
My understanding, Ms. Pocheha, and maybe this is what you're referring to, Member Woods, there was a prior development proposed that,
I remember the prior
Yeah.
development,
Okay.
but I could have swore we voted on the prior one originally was condos. We voted on one, I want to say last year or the year before, that was rental. And I thought they were breaking ground this summer.
No, not in front of CDC. The prior developer did appear in front of CDC twice because they actually had a concept PUD at the beginning of 2020, and then they came back, I want to say maybe June of 2020 for the final PUD. But that was all back in 2020, and it was a different development.
Okay.
any other
I
questions?
have questions.
Yes?
So, Mr. Friedman, 176 units, in your experience, kind of translates to how many residents, or what do you anticipate the increase of our residents here in Wooddale?
I would say that it would be somewhere around 250.
250. Well, of those 250, do you anticipate any to be children of school age?
Yes, there will be a small amount of school-age children, and based on the RDA, the number of school-age children that attend school, that will affect the TIF reimbursement.
Have we touched bases with the local school districts if this impact negatively or positively with our schools?
Yeah, one.
Would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
Stacy Springer, Community Development Director, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
We have been in touch with the school district and the superintendent. They're aware of the number of children that generally are produced out of this type of a development, this type of apartment complex. They don't have any concern with accommodating these children in their school district. Actually, their enrollment has been declining as of late, and they are pleased to know that because we are offering, this project involves TIF district funds, that there is a requirement in the TIF Act through the state that says that for every child that actually attends school that lives in this development, out of the TIF, the first payment goes to the school district. Each of those, they have a cost per child to educate a child. And whatever that amount is per child, we have to pay out of the TIF to the school district. So they'll be compensated for educating any students that come out of this project.
Thank you, Stacy. Along those lines, with regards to fire and police, what kind of inputs do we have?
So I don't believe our UDO or our UDO has any specific requirements for the fire district.
We have sent the plans to the fire district.
Yes.
They have taken a look at them. They were a little concerned with the width of the drive aisles, and they said that they'd be okay with it provided the developer provided turn exhibits to show that their fire trucks could make the turns. And those were provided, and they're satisfied with the results.
Thank you, Stacy.
Any other questions? Yes, Member Woods?
Going back to it, Stacy, you spoke to the superintendent and he had no problems with
Yes,
this
I
at
did.
all?
Yep.
Really? All right, I have to check on that.
By the way, the numbers at our other project in Wheeling, just so you know, from a reference standpoint, it's about less than 3% of the units will produce school-age children. Just to give you an idea, there's a lot of empty nesters. There are some divorcees, and there are some young professionals. Most of the children that end up living in these types of luxury apartment buildings are not school-age children, but toddlers. And then ultimately, when the children get old enough to go to school, usually the young family will seek to purchase a single-family home.
Yes.
Yeah, this is, I guess, Mr. Friedman or Goshi, either one. After reading through the packet, I was comfortable with pretty much everything that was there. I think your building looks fantastic, and I think it would be a plus for Wooddale.
Thank you.
And it would kind of go along that corridor of Wooddale Road with the new buildings that went out a little bit further, the logistics buildings, et cetera. So I think it looks real good. Two things that came up, though, that I had circled. One was the parking lot island width. What was the reason for not complying there?
So it really just came down to providing enough parking. And I just want to now dive into that a little bit deeper. When we first met with city officials, they said that they wanted public parking on the site. And then we found out that this area was in a flood zone, and so we couldn't provide any parking here. And so we ended up decreasing the number of public parking spaces, and it eventually dwindled down to 6 public parking spaces. And I just had a conversation with Stacy yesterday, and we both agreed that it's really not worth the aggravation in legal documents for the 6 public parking spaces. We'll probably forego those 6 public parking spaces, which will then give us an opportunity to increase some of the parking lot islands.
Okay, yeah, the other question I had, I'm not a tree hugger, but I like trees.
So do I.
The replacement trees, significant amount not being planted. Is that a situation where you just don't have space, or the
Yeah, I mean,
landscape?
so if you want to
of
go
the-
to the landscape plan, I mean, you can literally see that, I mean, every square inch possible where we could squeeze a tree, we squeezed a tree. I mean, the reality is that right now, this area back here has a lot of unsightly dead trees. You know, I don't think they're really adding anything. And we tried to get as much landscaping on the property as possible. And like I said, you know, we are happy to contribute, you know, additional trees to neighboring properties that, you know, the city, you know, deems appropriate.
Is there a screening issue back there? Worth, you know, I don't know what's behind there.
You mean on the west side, by
Yeah,
the park
that-
district, the water park?
Well, the water park, and also the first part of the parking lot where you said there's a lot of trees back there.
Yeah, this area right here, this is
Yeah.
where most of the trees are. I mean, but if you walk by there, it's not like they're really plush.
But will it create an issue for the people living there, looking at a parking lot versus, you know, trees? I mean, is there some screening that needs to be taken care of over there?
Are you talking about the people that?
Right there where your
Here?
light. Yeah, I mean, whatever's over there, and I'm not sure what's over there, but
It's the water park.
That's the water.
it's the water park?
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure Matt will have some information on that and some points. But is there screening that needs, I'm just asking this question. Should there be some type of screening back there, arborvitaes or
I
something
mean, we
like
do
that?
have a lot of trees up in this area here. I mean, really, I mean, the perimeter, I feel like, is surrounded by trees. You know, and there's also, I think, there's a grade change. There's a retaining wall or something there. What's the, I don't know what the height is off the top of my head. Yeah, so.
Okay.
So that'll help, you know, provide some, you know, additional screening, plus the you know, the trees that are in place there, so.
Ghosh, are you comfortable with what he said?
Yes, yes, so we had our engineers look at the engineering plans, but in terms of landscaping, because the use next, it's not a residential use, they're exceeding the site perimeter requirements with the proposal, so there really isn't a lot more room left to be able to plant the replacement trees.
Good.
So, how many trees are we anticipating taking down?
I think 197.
197. And you anticipate putting how many trees on that plan?
Dan?
A total of 92 going on there.
So if it's 1 for 1, 92 plus 20, what does that give us? 110, 112? Why are we kind of being shorted here on the 197?
So our code requires multiple replacement tree per a single removed tree. So that's why we have to look at, we have, one of the requirements is an extensive list, table actually, listing all of the trees. So let's say we look at condition of the tree and we look at its size. And depending of how many inches in size it is at breast height, it triggers how many replacement trees are needed for that one tree. Sometimes we may need 2, or we may need 4. So then we go through that entire table and that gives us the ultimate number. So they're not removing 260 trees. They're removing less than that. But because each one of those being removed kind of requires the multiple replacement. And that's all from the UDO.
So that was our team, our staff that came up with the 20? That,
The 20 additional.
The 20
For the
additional?
additional, yeah, it was just a suggestion, yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Member Woods?
Going back to the trees, if they're short 137, why are we only taking 20?
Part of it is we need to make sure that we have, because it has to be publicly owned property, so we want to make sure that we have sufficient space to be able to accommodate them. Because the idea was that it would be somewhere close to the project. So I think 20 seemed like a reasonable number.
Not if I'm losing 137, it doesn't. That seems reasonable to you? 20 for 137?
If I could add that, the prior development also, we were trying to be consistent with the way the prior development was treated. They weren't required to do any replacement trees. They also were proposing about half of what this developer is proposing. So the prior developer was going to propose somewhere around 50 trees, and they're putting in 92. And there really wasn't any land left where they could add additional trees. And so just for consistency purposes with how the prior developer was treated is why we were heading in that direction.
I think the prior development has nothing to do with this.
Well, not to mention the prior development was stuck on a lot of other things, the brick and stuff like that, that we didn't bend for. So I don't think we can go 1 for 1 there. I would just like it answered on why we're only getting 20 for 137.
This was just a suggestion. That I believe one of the conditions from the trees were not one of the conditions. There was the tree replacement or the requirement not to have to replace the trees on the prior development was not an issue.
The other issue I'd like to raise is the code that was in place previously was doubled as of May. So instead of 137, it would have been
Half of that. So
at
like
least
70,
half of
yeah.
that. If they had
Mhm.
applied,
Under the old UDO.
If they would have been in, but they're not.
True.
So it should still be 137. And I'm sure over the course of Wooddale, we got plenty of public areas to put those trees. You don't agree?
Oh, no, this, as I said, this was just a suggestion. Obviously, you know, it's open for,
Well,
it's a
Would you
suggestion
have a
condition
problem
on the
with more
motion.
trees?
Yes,
Why?
money.
So I guess we gotta make the islands bigger then. To house more trees.
Well, our code, typically only one shade tree can be accommodated per landscape island, and those are placed there. It's really just the width that's a little bit less, but in terms of the island itself, they do have shade trees in them.
So of the 20 trees, is that just the tree, or is that the tree and the planting of the tree?
I'm sorry, I don't
Of the
follow.
20 trees?
No, we're planting 90-plus new trees on the site, and then we are contributing 20 trees to the city to plant wherever they want at their discretion, because we can't fit them on this property.
Any additional questions?
Where do we plan on putting all the snow? I noticed
We
that it
provided
seems
a,
pretty tight there.
We provided a snow exhibit, which is, it really covers the perimeter landscaping and the area to the south.
I apologize, I don't believe I have
That's
it
okay.
with me, yeah.
And the reality is that, you know, it's a lot of salt, you know, from snow removal and maintenance.
I'm just worried about the fire department getting in the wintertime.
I understand.
This,
Right.
and if I may, this was one of the comments from a fire district, so that's why a subsequent the snow removal instead of collection areas plan was submitted.
All right, to you, Gosha, we gave notice, did we give notice that everybody from, like, say, the library to here? All the people in this
No.
back area?
No, so
Aren't
our
they gonna be
code,
affected by all that traffic that's gonna run back through their housing?
our code requires notices to be provided to property owners within 250 feet of the subject property, so it does not go as far as the library.
Even if it's gonna totally affect them?
There was a traffic impact study that was done. It was reviewed by city consultants. We have an engineer that works for the city. And it actually is noted in the memo that it's not expected that there will be significant impact on the streets, or the actual existing streets are able to accommodate it. So that was not noted as something that was an issue.
Well, there's gonna be a ton more traffic on that back street. I think we all know that. The people who can't get out on the Irving right away are gonna go out the back. And they're gonna take it back around to where it comes on School. I don't see how that study could say it's not gonna increase that traffic.
It's, the actual findings of the traffic study say the street network can accommodate the additional traffic from the proposed development and future traffic growth. That was the statement from our traffic engineer.
Okay.
Okay.
I also have my traffic engineer here, and please ask him any
Where's
questions.
he at?
Come
Come
on
on
up,
up.
Steve. I didn't bring you here for nothing.
Good evening. My name is Stephen
one-
Corcoran.
one-
I'm
one
Director
moment,
of
sir.
Traffic Engineering.
Well, one moment, sir. We just need to swear you in.
I was giving you my name.
Right hand, please, and state your name and address.
Steve Corcoran, 145 Commerce Drive, Grace Lake, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, anyhow, I'm Director of Traffic Engineering with Erickson Engineering Associates, and we prepared a traffic study that was in your packet as well as reviewed by your staff. To answer your question, excuse me. First of all, we did a directional distribution analysis, and with the I-390 to the north, for the folks that are driving, that's going to attract a lot of traffic, so we're assuming, we analyzed 60% of the traffic going to and from the north on Wooddale Road, so there's really not a large percentage of the traffic that would have the incentive to cut through, as you described. Yes, do we expect 5 or 10 cars during rush hour potentially going back there? Yes, but not a lot more.
5 or 10 cars? How many cars are you planning on coming out of there between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning?
A total of 56 in and out during the morning rush hour?
All right, so during the morning rush hour, when they have a hard time making that left to go out to go through 390 that you're saying, people are gonna say, hey, I can take the shortcut, go around the back of the houses and come up on School and go to 390 that way. Now, mind you, right next to this complex you have is where they park the school buses, and the school buses start out of there between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. So I consider that it's gonna be a big problem, actually.
In terms of the buses coming out, or?
Just the traffic alone. But now add the buses into that traffic.
Well,
I
again,
mean, for years, it was never a problem with buses because there was really no traffic back there at all. But now there's going to be traffic, and it's gonna be more than 5 cars.
well, I would have to disagree, because first of all, this is a transit-oriented development, so there's a number of people that can live here can take advantage of the train station. So that's why our trip duration's 56 cars during the morning peak hour. And again, many of them aren't gonna head north, but there's traffic signals and obviously the railroad crossing to the south to help create gaps for them to make those lefts as well. So they can make it, yeah. Like you said though, some people may take that back route to School Street and use the traffic signal, but again, we anticipate that being a very low number. It's a kind of very circuitous, out of the way drive.
All right, this goes to you then, Gosha. If that becomes a problem, what do we do about it?
I think at this point, it would be a police enforcement. If there's a traffic, because it would be on there right away.
That was my whole other thought on this, that sooner or later, we're gonna probably end up having 2 squads sitting out there directing traffic in and out of this, which is money that's gonna cost us. Correct?
As a
So if we
public-
don't get the traffic end of it right now, it's gonna cost us some money. Well, I didn't say that.
Any other questions for staff or for Mr. Friedman and his team? Okay. So again, we'll proceed to closing the public hearing. Just as a reminder, this is, again, your time to ask questions. And once we close the public hearing, that's just for deliberation, and the time to ask questions is over at that point. So last call for any questions.
I'm going back to this tree thing again. You had mentioned, money, agreed. I think there should be some type of compromise. The way with me doing the math, it appears we're probably about 27 trees short. I propose that we add another 15 to the 20 to make it 35.
The 20 was the compromise.
Well, 15 would be another compromise.
You
You're
can-
way
you-
off on
you-
your, look, the numbers are way off. No,
Listen,
no,
you
that's
can-
not a
you
joke,
can-
it's
you
not a
can-
joke.
You can propose whatever you
All
want,
right,
but I don't think.
I'm proposing that you come up with another 15 trees. I don't know how much that's gonna cost, but whatever, and make it 35 to the city of Wooddale.
I'm just telling you, I'm not going to accept that, but you obviously can propose whatever you want. This project is extremely tight right now. Construction costs have gone way up. And at the end of the day, we have to make the numbers work in order to get our construction loan and in order to get our equity to break ground on this project.
What would you consider those 15 extra trees to cost?
I don't know off the
I don't
top
think
of
it's
my
gonna
head.
break the bank.
Yes. We have about $650 for a tree to be first installed.
You can buy some pretty nice trees then.
You would.
You must have some pretty nice trees at 650. 650 a tree.
This would be a tree about 1.25 inch caliber.
So what does that cost?
Okay, so if we're going to have any additional questions, we need to have the witnesses sworn in. Do you have additional questions for
No,
this
that's
witness?
it. I'm just proposing another 15 trees to be gone into the Wooddale, wherever, city.
Okay. All right, any additional questions before we close? Okay, now I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Can somebody please make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? All right, and roll call, please, Ms. Gepetta.
Mr. Peterson.
This is just to close the hearing.
The hearing. Ms. Zadko.
Yes.
Mr. Woods.
Yes.
Mr. Babowitz.
Yes,
Ms. Rudnicki.
Yes.
And Chairman Ochoa.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing portion is closed. Now we'll head into deliberations. Does any member of the...
Does the public not get an opportunity?
Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Let's do this. Let's do a motion to reopen, and he is absolutely correct. Let's do a motion to reopen the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to reopen the public hearing.
Okay,
Second.
okay.
I'm sorry, who made that motion to reopen? Okay, Woods and second.
All in favor?
Hold on, she's trying to find out who said.
Who made the second to reopen?
I did.
Mr. Peters.
Peterson. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna get a roll call. Mr. Babowitz.
yes.
Ms. Rudnicki.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Ms. Zadko.
Yes.
Mr. Woods.
Yes.
And Chairman Ochoa.
Yes.
Okay, and my apologies. Sir, please.
Would you raise your right hand, please, and state your name and address?
Matthew Alman, 111 East Foster, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
Yes,
help
I
you
do.
God?
Yes, I do.
Sir, do you have a card? Would you give it to me when you're done? When you're done.
I will write it down for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Alman. I'm the Executive Director of the Wooddale Park District, so we are a neighbor to this potential project. And my purpose here is just to be educated so I can let my Board of Commissioners know what's happening and obviously be a good neighbor and a good partner with the city and all of their taxing districts and new residents as well as current residents. I'd like to state that with the last project that was referenced, I had numerous conversations and communications with the developer early on before it got to this stage. This developer has not once reached out to me or the Park District, and being such a big stakeholder and neighbor with our beach water park located at that location, and also as Dave Woods indicated, the home of the transportation depot for the school district, a little taken back that we weren't brought into the conversation earlier. But I'm not here to make a formal objection to any of the code or to any of the deviations that are being requested. More importantly, just to convey some observations and make some pleas. First of all, as the Park District operates its beach water park at that facility, which is a seasonal operation, which why we have a lot of synergy with the school district and allowing them to not only house their buses there, but act as their transportation depot. Our major concerns would be related to safety. And so I might have a few questions that I would like to just kind of throw out, and maybe the developer can get a hold of me later and answer those. But we just want to make sure that this is a safe operation for the community and for the people who use our pool. Also wanted to note that, as you had pointed out, there are TIF funds that could be eligible to the school district as part of this process. I don't believe there are any that are made available to the Park District, although there is an impact that this will have on the Park District, both good and bad. Good that we want more participants in our programs, and increasing our residents helps in that, but also there's direct competition because you're putting a pool next to a pool, you're putting a fitness center right down the street from our fitness center, and we just want to make sure that our operations continue to serve the community. But I completely understand, no disrespect to the consultants and Mr. Friedman. You know, if I lived in a luxury apartment, I would want those conveniences right out my door.
With the last developer, we had a lot of conversations about the grading along the western side of the property and the fact that there is quite a deviation, and that developer proposed some ideas to make sure the retaining walls and the structure was going to be good for us, and also that the landscaping would be not only decorative and but also aesthetically pleasing, but also ecologically in line with what our mission is. So I would also make an appeal that we could have some conversation about that. I agree that a lot of the trees that are in that area are probably not in the best condition and not the best. In fact, we're excited about the fact that you're going to be taking out a lot of the cottonwoods because those aren't good for our filters in our pool. But we also want to make sure that those trees are aesthetically and valuable to the pool. Being a pool, you know, people can look in, people can obviously view the pool from the outside, and the neighbors have that benefit and also that burden that exists for the new developer as well. But, you know, the last thing I want to do is get a phone call that people are saying that their people are gawking at them from their apartments. Traffic. You know, I've been involved in traffic studies as well. I don't really profess to know a lot about them, but I do know there'll be a lot of activity in the summer, kids walking to the pool, families coming to the pool, buses in and out of the parking lot, and it's really important to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make this a safe environment. And when you're rushing to get to work or you're rushing out of a parking lot from a complex, you might not be thinking about the people who are walking by as often, so I would just ask for that to be a consideration. The last developer was obviously dealing with the hardship of the drainage and making sure the water was properly mitigated through the stormwater ordinances. It sounds like there's going to be some pretty big underground takes, which I think is a good idea to obviously allow you to get more out of the site. But, you know, we would just want to make sure that our site isn't watershed affected, and imagine with the work with the city that that's the case, but things don't always happen the way that you design and engineer them. So I guess basically my final point would be we are not here to object, but we are to plead that, you know, bring us into the conversation, talk to us, because we can be a help, and we can also make sure that the end result has synergy with all parties, school district, park district, city, and the developer. And I thank you for taking your time to listen to me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ellman. Is there anybody else in the audience, a member of the public, who would like to make a statement or any other comments? Okay. And final call for questions. All right, we will do another motion to close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Peterson, second. And roll call, please.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Ms. Zadko,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Beverly,
Yes.
Chairman Ochoa.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing portion of this matter is closed. We'll now proceed to deliberations. Are there any members that have any statements or comments they wish to make?
First.
Want to get some? Go ahead. Again, I'm behind the project. The only thing is, I would okay it with a condition of 15 trees to be placed in the city of Wooddale, wherever. I don't know what the rest of you feel about that. As Mr. Friedman said, the 20 was a compromise, the 35 is a compromise.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Peterson?
Well, I like the project myself. I don't know, I think a few things could be worked out, maybe with the traffic pattern. If he's concerned about people leaving and going down those side streets to get out, maybe it could be a no left-hand turn or usage in the morning. between the hours, rush hour, whatever.
Okay.
In general, I like the project.
Any other statements or
I'll go ahead.
comments?
Mr. Freeman, great presentation. Thank you, and thank you and your team for putting that together. Staff, thank you for answering the questions. I look forward to seeing this happen.
Mr. Woods?
I think we all sit up here thinking the project is a good idea. We've all wanted something there for probably the last 10, 15 years. The tree issue, I think, is an issue. We need to work on that. The traffic study area, definitely an issue. And tying the Park District into it is definitely an issue. I mean, I would have thought they would have known about this long ago. So, you know, and I've never heard this through the school district, that we've had any part in it. So I plan on asking my superintendent why he didn't notify me about it, so that's all I have to say.
Okay. Any further comments or statements?
Yeah, I think it's a great project. It looks beautiful. My big concern is the traffic. As you know, we're going to be getting up to possibly 14 more freights per day, and being that close to the intersection, it's going to be a problem. I know it's going to be a big problem. I don't know how it could be fixed, because you're going to have people going through the neighborhoods, and another issue is the residents don't know about this project. And I don't know how long the sign up was up in front of the bank, but I don't recall seeing it. And they're not aware of it. The people surrounding aren't aware of it, because I know of the previous project, there was a lot of people that were against it. There were many that were for it. And I would have loved to have seen residents here to get their opinion too, because they're going to be right in the middle of it. So, but the building's awesome. So.
Okay. Any further statements? Okay, so there is a draft motion. This is in the staff memo at page 18. I will read the motion. It's quite lengthy. Again, if you are in favor of this project and the motion, your vote will be a yes. If you are not in favor, your vote will be a no at the conclusion of this motion. So I am going to read the motion into the record. Once I'm done, a member can simply say so moved. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed 372 project meets the standards of approval and is consistent with the UDO and comprehensive plan, and therefore I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated October 17th, 2022, as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the special use for multiple unit dwelling units, plan unit development, concept and final development plan, and site plan review for 372 project at 372 North Wooddale Road in case number CDC 2022-0006, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the special use plan unit development and site plan review shall substantially conform to the staff memo dated October 17th, 2022, and the attached exhibits, except as such plans may be modified to meet city code requirements. Where deviations to the codes have not been requested as part of the approval, the existing codes must be met as applicable at the time of permit application. Condition number two, a final engineering approval. Condition number three, if the rooftop units are visible from the streets, the developer will be required to provide screening. Condition number four, at the discretion of the city, the developer will provide up to 20 off-site trees on publicly owned property. Condition number five, developer has the ongoing obligation to maintain the landscaping on the site in accordance with the approved landscape plan. That's the full motion. Any member can say so moved. And again, this is just to get the motion onto the floor for discussion.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, the motion made and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think we need to add some stuff to this. Are we allowed to?
Well, you can discuss it.
Okay. I'd like to add in for the trees, at least the 35 that you're discussing. Something for the future if we find that the traffic is outrageous. What are we gonna do about it? I mean, we have to have a plan for it right now.
I don't think we need a plan right now. I think all of that's part of growing and adopting a change. And with time, influx of people, influx of tax money, I think it'll allow for more staffing from police and fire. And would that be correct, Ms. Stacy?
Well, at this point, a public hearing is closed. So,
Yeah, that might all be true, but if you put 50 cars down a street and the street can't handle it, it becomes a problem. It's not about having police that can, do their job. We all know they can do their job.
I mean, an option could be, if traffic's an issue, make it no right turn between 7 and 9 a.m. or what have you, is an option, right?
I understand that, but I think if you ask their traffic study, that would create a problem out on Irving Park Road if the bulk of them are trying to go north to 390.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the traffic is also gonna be a problem with the freight trains too. Which
Absolutely,
already is a problem
absolutely.
too right now, so I'm not sure that,
I just
that
don't know that
problem.
this is all worked out yet. It's,
You'd almost have to put a light there of some kind.
I don't know
Some
that you
type
could.
of traffic.
Something else to consider, residents will adjust their timing, their departure time, to account for that traffic.
Well, yeah, if you have to be at work at a certain time, that could be an
And you
issue.
know you're gonna run into traffic at your exit, your home exit, you'll just adjust 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I don't think that's, my opinion, is a major concern.
Teresa, you mentioned something I was not aware of the 14 freights that are gonna be
Yeah.
added.
Yeah, they're gonna be adding, I don't know if it's 100% gone through yet, but they added 10 to 14 more freights going through the,
Could be a
Going
huge problem.
it's gonna be a big
oh,
problem.
it's gonna be a big problem.
and
Not just for this, but for
Right,
the
for
whole
everything.
city.
right, and just let me make a procedural observation. As you know, this body is a recommending body. Ultimately, it's the city council's purview to approve or deny this particular project. These deliberations are being recorded, so all the members on the city council are free to watch discussion that's being had here tonight in particular regards to the traffic issue and to the tree issue. You could just simply make a statement for the record right now that you would like city council to take a close look at not only the tree issue, but also the traffic
I
issue.
think it probably needs another traffic assessment once we know what's happening with the trains. That's gonna be a problem.
That and the children that are gonna be crossing that street in the summertime off of Crossing Guard, when you have all that traffic.
Okay. So we do have a motion, active motion on the floor. Members have expressed their concerns, I believe, as to the traffic issue and the tree issue. Those concerns are noted for the record. So at this point, what I would do is we will do a roll call on the motion that's on the floor,
Okay.
and we'll take it from there.
Mr. Bevelin?
Yes, with the condition that the traffic and the trees be addressed.
Ms. Rodriguez?
So I just want to make a procedural point for the record. We have an active motion on the floor with the specific conditions that I've read aloud. If you are in favor of those conditions, you would vote yes. Right now, there are no additional conditions that are on the floor. Obviously, you've made your feelings known throughout the course of this public meeting, and the city council can observe these proceedings. So I just want to make that clear. For your voting yes, it's for the motion that is on the floor right now.
So could we vote
Add conditions.
no and then bring it up again
What I'm going to
with the
recommend is that we vote on the motion that's on the floor, and then we'll go from there, okay? If you're not in favor of the motion that's on the floor, you would vote no, okay? So, Mr. Babowitz?
No.
Ms. Rudnicki,
No.
Mr. Peterson,
No.
Ms. Zatko,
No.
Mr. Woods,
No.
and Chairman Ochoa.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion fails. At this point, the recommendation of this board will be to deny. Obviously, it's, again, in the purview of the city council. They can accept your recommendation, they can reject your recommendation, or they can, they can add additional conditions that they choose fit.
How do we make sure that, let's say they're not watching this, and I would assume most of them are not. How do I'm in favor of the project. I think all of us are. However, we just have to have a couple things looked at. We discussed the trees and the traffic.
Right.
How do we get that before
And that's,
council?
Member Babowitz, that's something that I can help you with, okay?
Okay.
We can discuss that after the meeting,
Great.
okay?
Because I think it's important.
The minutes will reflect all of the concerns as well.
Because I don't want them to think that we're sitting here denying the project when this is close, and I think there's a few things that can get ironed out.
Okay.
Do we
What's
modify
that?
this recommendation?
No, at this point, we've had a vote, it's gonna go up as a recommended denial, and that will be up to the city council. Okay? Okay, so the next step will be, we'll go up to the PZB committee. Do we have a schedule for that?
I believe it's the 27th of October.
Okay. All right, that concludes this matter, and, Mr. Chairman, I believe it's back into your court here.
So, we will go ahead, back at staff, any reports from staff?
I just wanted to let you know that we do have a couple applications. They're incomplete at this point, but we do anticipate that we will have a CDC meeting in November. We also contemplated, probably sometime next year, we'll do a training session for CDC members. You may recall we had one a couple years ago, so we have a couple new members since then, so we'll schedule something probably in the coming months as well.
Thank you. Anything else? No?
And I would just like to take this opportunity to welcome Ms. Stacy Springer. This is her first CDC meeting, I believe.
This is.
Okay.
I've been here 4 months already, and so I'm enjoying the position and the staff, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay.
Thank you, Stacy. Oh, moving on, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
There being a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All those opposed signify by stating no. The motion carries, meeting is adjourned.